Hey guys! Tonight we slip back into the velvet shadows of Tudor England, where daggers weren't the only things that gleamed under candlelight. You're standing in a corridor that smells faintly of rose water and coal smoke. Somewhere down the hall, a lute plucks out a melancholic tune that doesn't quite match the royal cheer drifting from the banquet room. And right in front of you, a box. It's small, padded in deep crimson velvet and clasped with a gold latch shaped like a lion's paw. Your fingers hesitate not out of fear but from that strange tingle of knowing something's off. But you open it anyway. Inside lies a necklace, pearls, wrapped around a singular drop of ruby rich and pulsing like a fresh wound. It's beautiful. It's wrong. And it's about to change everything. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all dreaming from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The necklace was first recorded in the Royal Wardrobe Ledger in the winter of 1585, an item of red stone set in rope of pearl believed to be of Genoese origin. That's what the entry said. But Genoa hadn't shipped jewels to the English court in years, thanks to a very inconvenient sea skirmish involving pirates, one bribed admiral, and the insult of someone using the word bastard in a treaty. So where did it really come from? Rumors whispered that it had been a private gift unrecorded except for this curious slip into the official logs. Some claimed it arrived wrapped in black silk with no return address. Others said it was brought personally by a noblewoman who kissed the queen's hand with lips stained redder than the stone itself. You remember the court's obsession with symbolism. Red meant power, virility, war, passion, but it also meant blood. And this necklace was heavy with it. When Elizabeth first wore it to a midnight feast commemorating the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, yes, they had feasts for that you could feel a chill in the air despite roaring fires. She looked radiant, yes, but also strained. People said it made her glow. But glow is such a vague word, isn't it? Sometimes things glow right before they burn. And her ladies-in-waiting whispered that she'd started complaining of strange dreams. Dreams of falling into deep, dark water. Dreams where she couldn't speak. Here's the first real fact you'll want to tuck under your pillow. Queen Elizabeth, despite her formidable intellect and courtly composure, was deeply superstitious. She owned over 80 talismans, including blessed hand mirrors, crushed opal potions, and a collection of amulets allegedly inscribed by Dr. John Dee himself, the Queen's personal astrologer and rumored necromancer. So wearing a necklace rumored to have mystical origins? Not out of character, but keeping it on even after her hair started falling out in thin tufts. That was new. Now, let's talk about the box again. Because when you see it a second time weeks later, it's not in the Queen's chamber. It's on the table of a certain Master Henry Stillwater, a lesser-known goldsmith in London. He was summoned to polish the necklace but refused. Said the stone whispered. When asked what it said, he turned pale and replied, "My name." He vanished 3 days later. Historians still argue whether he fled, fell into the Thames, or was silenced by order of the crown. But there's this quirky bit in the archives. Someone scribbled sanguis vocat in the margin of a court transcript discussing Stillwater's disappearance. Latin, the blood calls. Whatever that means, it makes your teeth itch a little, doesn't it? And we're not even to the creepy part yet. Here's something no one mentions in schoolbooks. A servant girl, Eleanor Green, once wrote in a hidden letter that she saw the Queen take the necklace off once and that her fingertips left a faint smear on the pearl string. She described it as silver like mercury and cold as tomb breaths. Sure, she might have been exaggerating, or maybe she wasn't. Mercury was often used in the production of imitation jewels and in alchemical experiments gone wrong. But what if the necklace was something else entirely? Not poisoned in the usual way, not a slow-acting venom meant to kill, but something that dulled her senses, loosened her judgment, made her forget just enough to trust the wrong people. Late one night, you imagine standing by the corridor again. A gust of wind slinks in through a half-latched window. Candlelight flickers. And just down the hallway, that same velvet box sits open, waiting. But of course, you don't touch it. Not yet. You stare at the ruby again the next morning. Now it's nestled beneath a sheer lace collar pressed against the delicate skin at Elizabeth's throat as she receives ambassadors from Denmark. The queen sits with regal posture, but there's something off in her stillness today, like a statue that's been sat too long in the rain. Her fingers twitch once just slightly as the Danish envoy compliments the necklace. She doesn't smile. The ruby catches the light. It gleams with an almost unnatural perfection, too red, too deep, like it might drip if the room got too warm. You notice the ambassador can't look away from it. Neither can you. One of the Queen's oldest goldsmiths, Thomas Gerard, finally speaks up at court a few days later. Not publicly, of course. He's much too careful for that. But in a low conversation over spiced ale, he murmurs to you that the ruby isn't a ruby. It's been cut too recently, he says, too clean for its time. Stones from that era always hold a fingerprint of their maker. This one has no past. And here's your mainstream historical tidbit. Gemstones during the Elizabethan era were often identifiable by cut. England wasn't known for masterful gem cutting. Most precious stones were imported from India or Italy, then recut locally. But this stone bore no sign of being touched by human hands at all. And no one could place its origin. The pearl strand too odd. Pearls age even in perfect storage, but the ones threaded through this necklace are eerily smooth, no cracks, no yellowing, not even that faint scent of sea that old pearls sometimes carry. They almost feel synthetic, centuries before plastic was a thing. That's when the suspicion begins to creep in. You catch snippets of conversation behind tapestries. Lady Blanche murmuring to a guard about how the Queen's scent has changed. Not worse, just different. More like iron and roses. Court musicians gossiping about how Her Majesty hasn't blinked during entire harpsichord recitals. Someone even says she sleeps with her eyes half open now. Maybe they're exaggerating, but no one's laughing. The Queen still dons her necklace most mornings. Sometimes with her coronation robes. Other times with a simple hunting cloak, like she's forgotten what grandeur looks like. She eats less, sleeps less, stares out windows longer. Historians still argue whether Elizabeth was suffering from early signs of arsenic exposure symptoms like fatigue, hair thinning, changes in skin texture. But there's no medical consensus, and her known cosmetics at the time already included lead-based white paint for the face. The woman essentially wore a small pharmacy daily. It makes diagnosis tricky. But you, of course, aren't a historian. You're just someone in the hallways. A silent witness to things no record ever quite explains. Take this fringe tidbit. One morning, the Queen's dog, a sweet spaniel named Lucy, bites her. Full-on growl, snap, blood-drawn bite. The Queen doesn't flinch, not even a gasp. She just looks down at the dog's size and says, "It's all right, dear one, I'm not myself these days." Then she gently hands the necklace to her maid, asks for it to be polished, and retreats behind a heavy curtain. Later that same day, Lucy is gone, vanished from the kennels. The royal groundskeeper claims the dog was given to a noble family in Sussex. But the boy who feeds the falcons tells a different story. He says he saw a flash of white fur buried in the ashes beneath the great hearth. You hope it's not true, but the timing is too neat. The necklace returns gleaming colder than ever. There's another thing Gerard said over that ale just before he left for the countryside and never came back. A gem that has no past is either new or stolen from something that never lived. You didn't ask what he meant, you didn't want to know. But your dreams that night are stained red, and still the Queen wears it. You watch her fingers trace the pearls absently during council meetings. She presses the ruby once between her thumb and index finger when she's displeased. And sometimes her hand lingers there too long, like the gem is whispering back. That's when the coughing begins. Not hers, others. close servants, gentlemen of the chamber, the queen's favorite lute player. One by one, they fall into sick beds for days. Nothing fatal, just dizziness, skin blotches, a metallic taste in the mouth. And each one, it said, had been near the necklace. A Dutch visitor named Cornelis writes in his private travel diary, "The queen shines unnaturally as if lit from beneath the skin. Her voice rings sharp now like struck glass. I believe she is more spirit than woman." The diary is later smuggled out of the country after Cornelis is arrested for spying. You wonder if he was spying, or simply seeing too clearly. Because let's be honest, if a necklace can survive generations without aging, change the scent of a monarch, and make dogs howl at dawn, then maybe we're not talking about jewelry anymore. Maybe we're talking about a tool, or worse, a message. Section 3. You hear his voice before you see him. Soft, measured, with that faint curl of French vowels around the English syllables, like he's folding velvet napkins just by speaking. He says things like, "Her pain is of the mind, not the flesh, and the queen's humors must be coaxed back into balance." You catch your first glimpse of him through a frosted pane beside the chapel. He's young, impossibly so. Skin like polished marble hair, too perfect to be trusted. Not a speck of soot or sweat on his gloves, even after traveling all the way from Rouen. He introduces himself as Jacques Lemire, an apothecary and herbal counselor of noble descent, whatever that means. You watch as he bows low before Elizabeth, but his eyes never leave hers, and neither does hers leave his. There's an uncomfortable stillness in the room, like everyone's holding their breath, unsure if this stranger just charmed their sovereign or enchanted her. Now, here's a fact for your pillow. Foreign physicians were nothing new to the English court. Elizabeth entertained doctors from Italy, Spain, and even Poland, all bearing tinctures and tonics said to cure everything from infertility to heartbreak. But Jacques was different. He wasn't just tolerated, he was immediately trusted. He claimed to have developed a method of distilling emotion into powder. Yes, emotion. When one feels too much joy, he said, the body strains. My job is to soften that. And when Elizabeth asked if it could soften fear, he smiled. Especially fear. What was in those powders? That's still up for debate. Historians argue whether Jacques de Lemire was a real apothecary or an alias used by a known French agent named Henri Delacour, who vanished from the Spanish Netherlands a year prior and was rumored to have reappeared in England with false credentials and dangerous knowledge. But here's the fringe tidbit. A letter from Lord Walsingham, the Queen's own spymaster, mentions a serpent in satin slippers and warns that the Queen's chamber has been perfumed with foreign smoke. Most believe it referred to incense from Jacques' treatments. Some think it meant something else entirely. You pass him in the corridor once. His scent lingers too long. Something sweet like lavender, only underneath is a bite, like mold hiding under powdered sugar. He speaks only when spoken to, stays mostly within the Queen's wing. But you see him once at the stables standing near the horses, murmuring something under his breath. The animals won't go near him. And then the powders begin appearing in rooms. Little paper twists folded precisely sealed with wax symbols. Some tucked into the Queen's gloves. Others slipped into her goblet after meals. A few even hidden inside the folds of her sleeves. You watch one drop on the floor during a late-night council meeting. The seal cracks. The dust inside is gold, shimmering like ground-up sunlight. It doesn't spill. It floats. Jacques retrieves it without comment. No one breathes a word. You try to tell yourself it's nothing. Just foreign customs, exotic remedies. But that's harder to believe when Lady Cecily faints mid-sentence while dressing the Queen, her skin turning briefly gray. Jacques claims she's sensitive to alchemical frequencies, whatever that means. Elizabeth doesn't blink. She keeps staring into her mirror, touching the necklace. And speaking of the mirror, have you noticed she's begun checking it more? Not out of vanity, but almost like she's listening to it. Like she's waiting for something to appear behind the glass. You catch her one evening alone humming a tune with no melody. Her fingers trace the ruby again, and for a split second her reflection doesn't move with her. You blink. Maybe you imagined it. Or maybe you didn't. The court adjusts quickly to Jacques' presence. Servants bow when he walks by. Guards step aside. Even the nobles learn to smile with their teeth tightly closed. And of course he's charming. He tells jokes in 4 languages, plays the lute poorly but with enthusiasm, makes children laugh with conjuring tricks that probably aren't tricks at all. Still, nobody really knows where he sleeps. You hear someone say he's built a chamber beneath the queen's quarters. Another claims he disappears entirely after sundown. One particularly imaginative footman swears he walks backward into shadows and vanishes. But here's the part that really sticks with you. The queen smiles more when he's around. Yes, but it's a different smile. Thin, glassy. The kind of smile you wear when you've forgotten how to feel the real thing. One morning you find Jacques tending a small fire in the royal garden. He's alone feeding herbs into a clay pot. You hear him say the body is a gate, the mind is the lock, my dust is the key. He never looks at you, but somehow you know he knew you were watching. Later that week, a new box appears in the queen's dressing room. Velvet. Blue this time. Inside a second necklace. Slightly different. Thinner pearls. A smaller stone green this time, but it hums. And you realize something horrible. The ruby wasn't a gift, it was a prototype. You start paying closer attention to the maids. They always know things before the rest of court catches up. Like how many nights the queen has gone without sleep, or which nobles are sneaking out with their collars half-fastened. And lately they've stopped humming while they work. Lady Margaret. One of the most trusted ladies-in-waiting is seen weeping in the hallway after helping Elizabeth dress. Not weeping from grief, no, this is something stranger. Like she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to. Her words come in broken fragments to a stable hand nearby. She blinked and the mirror didn't, but she never finishes the sentence. A week later, Margaret is dismissed for insubordination. Which is odd because the queen never even raised her voice. She simply stared, placed her fingers on the necklace and whispered, "Some things must remain polished." Another lady-in-waiting, Anne Kettridge, begins fainting randomly, always in the queen's chambers, always after touching one of the gloves or helping with the cloak. She claims she smells thunder before it happens, a scent no one else can detect, except you. Once, briefly, metallic, like lightning trapped in velvet. You find a handkerchief tucked behind a curtain after Anne's last episode. It's crusted with something dark, not blood, something finer, as if ink had dried in powder form. You don't report it. You're learning not to report things. A chambermaid named Tilly begins scratching her arms raw. She says there's something crawling beneath her skin after washing the queen's favorite goblet. You ask if it's fleas. She shakes her head. No, she whispers, it's like guilt but alive. Tilly vanishes 3 days later. And here's a mainstream historical fact just to anchor you. Queen Elizabeth's court kept meticulous records. Dismissals, illnesses, changes in staffing, all noted. Yet during this stretch of months, more than a dozen servants go missing from the logs with no explanation. Their names appear, then suddenly don't. Historians argue whether these were intentional omissions or clerical oversights. But there's one notation that stands out, a single word written beside 5 different vanished names: cleansed. The handwriting matches none of the known scribes. As things continue unraveling, you start to notice how often Jacques appears after someone falls ill. Not with medicine, just present, watching, offering tea, recommending rest, always just in time to suggest perhaps they need isolation. And then there's the sound. At first, you think it's just your nerves. But no, it's real. A low hum that begins whenever the queen enters a room wearing the ruby necklace. It's faint like bees behind a wall. No one mentions it, not aloud. But you see others flinch slightly when she passes. You feel it in your teeth. That's not normal. One morning, the queen's voice cracks during a reading. Just once, mid-word, like a record skipping. It startles everyone. Jacques offers her a small crystal vial with a viscous green liquid. She drinks without asking what it is. That's not normal either. Fringe, fact incoming. There's a court rumor recorded in a letter to a bishop about a devil stone that was gifted to the queen by a cloaked emissary from the Order of the Dragon. The letter was dismissed as heretical nonsense, but the location and timing match the first appearance of the necklace exactly. You begin to wonder, was the necklace meant for Elizabeth at all? Or was it passed along from hand to hand until it found someone compatible? Because the necklace seems to feed off contact. The more it's touched, the more vivid Elizabeth's voice becomes. The louder the hum, the longer her gaze lingers when someone speaks against her. One afternoon during a small council dispute, Lord Devonshire raises his voice, challenges the Queen directly on military spending. It's bold, reckless, but what happens next is worse. She doesn't answer. She simply rises, steps close, and touches the ruby. Devonshire collapses to his knees, seizing. Later, Jacques claims it was a fit of the blood. The man drinks too much wine, he says smoothly. His vessels betray him. But you saw it. She didn't even blink. That night the Queen hums again. The same broken, tuneless melody. And this time when she gazes into the mirror, her lips move but no sound comes out, as if she's conversing with something silently. And still the maids continue fainting. One drops a candle tray after claiming the walls whispered her name. Another locks herself in the linen closet and sobs for hours. There's this eerie cycle now. Someone serves too close to the Queen. They get ill, they're sent away, replaced, forgotten. Except you keep your distance, just close enough to watch, just far enough to stay unimportant, because by now you've figured something out. The necklace isn't cursed in the old-fashioned sense. No immediate doom, no black fog or lightning strikes. No, it's careful, it takes its time. It prefers subtlety, it doesn't kill. Not right away. It erodes, and the Queen, she's still smiling. But her eyes, they don't quite follow the room anymore. The Queen's complexion is changing. It's gradual, subtle enough to be explained away by stress or cold weather, but you notice. Everyone does. She's paler now. Not sickly pale, just less. Alive. Her cheeks are no longer touched with rose even under layers of white lead. Her lips, once stained crimson, are painted thinner each day. The color doesn't stay. It fades too fast. And her scent has shifted again. Gone is the usual mix of damask, rose beeswax, and lavender. Now it's something powdery and dry, like crushed chalk over a dying garden. You remember the scent once? From a chapel cellar. The kind of place you walk into and instantly feel unwelcome. Physicians are summoned, of course. They whisper of melancholia, of overwork. One suggests a bleeding, which Jacques promptly refutes with a smile. No. The Queen's blood is perfect. It must not be weakened. That alone raises eyebrows, but no one challenges him. He's too useful. Too close. And here's your next mainstream historical fact. Elizabeth fiercely guarded her health in her later years, refusing invasive treatment and trusting only a few select advisors. Yet during this window, no written record survives of her receiving any traditional care for nearly 2 months despite growing signs of fatigue, thinning hair, and joint stiffness. It's as if someone else took charge of her well-being and scrubbed the records clean. You begin to count the moments when her necklace seems to affect her directly. Like when she speaks in court and the ruby flares faintly, not visibly, but you feel it. A pulse. A shift in air pressure. As if something beneath the stone inhales. Or when she brushes her fingers across the pearls and pauses mid-sentence. As if listening to something whispered only to her. Something you're not meant to hear. Then comes the worst sign yet. One fog-laced evening, you're outside the Queen's window helping trim the frost-bitten hedges. The curtains are drawn back slightly, and inside Elizabeth sits before her mirror, not moving, Not speaking, just staring. Her hand lifts slowly, touches the ruby. Her lips part barely, and she mouths something. Over and over. You can't hear it, but you read it clear as day. Tell me what to do. Now you're sure. The necklace isn't just a charm. It's not just a poison. It's a channel. And Jacques, he's the operator. Let's dive into a fringe tidbit from this period. One undocumented visitor, a Venetian envoy, wrote a single chilling line in his private journal after departing court. The queen rules with eyes borrowed from another. The entry is circled in black ink and found decades later in a private collection. No one knows what he meant. But maybe now, you do. Meanwhile at court, the hum intensifies. You hear it more frequently now, not just in the queen's presence, but in empty corridors and stairwells. A resonance. Sometimes you even feel it in your dreams vibrating behind your eyes. People are talking less, laughing less. The queen's inner circle has tightened. Only 4 ladies now tend to her directly, and all of them walk like sleepwalkers. They don't look you in the eye anymore. They don't see you. Servants outside her chambers start reporting headaches, nausea. One collapses after swearing the queen passed through her like mist, like breath. Historians still argue whether this period marks the beginning of Elizabeth's final transformation into the mythic Virgin Queen persona, where she appeared less mortal, more divine. But here among the boots and corsets and candle soot, it feels far less poetic. It feels like subtraction. Each day a little less of her remains. Then comes the detail that sets your spine alight. The queen walks barefoot across cold stone. Just once. Seen only by a cook fetching water before sunrise. No cloak. No guard. No sound. Just the necklace glowing faintly red in the dark, pulsing in time with her breath. The cook never speaks again. She's sent away the next day with a pouch of coins and an escort that never returns. You begin to wonder who is protecting who. Is Jacques guarding Elizabeth from the world, or is he guarding us from whatever she's becoming? Because here's a thought you haven't dared say out loud. What if the necklace isn't hurting her? What if it's helping her change, helping her last, helping her command silence with a stare and make enemies fall with a glance? What if she knows what it is and accepts the price? You hear her say one thing just once in passing. To no one in particular, even eternity demands tribute. You don't ask what she means. You just keep your head down. But something inside you shifts. A question, sharp and quiet. If the queen dies, what happens to the necklace? And worse, if she doesn't. There's a strange draft in the western wing tonight. You've walked this corridor hundreds of times. It always smelled of beeswax and stone. The air still and a little damp. But now it's tinged with something sharp, like burning herbs or bone. You trace the smell to a narrow storage room behind the queen's dressing chamber. No one's supposed to be here. The door creaks when you push it. Inside, dust curls and spirals, and beneath the warped floorboards, something clicks. You pry one loose, and there it is. A book, tattered, leather-bound, damp from years of silence. No name on the cover, just an embossed circle of thorns. You open it, and the pages crackle. The ink has bled in places, warped like it's recoiled from itself. It's a journal. Not from Jacques, not from Elizabeth, but from a servant named Elizabeth Bray. She writes in a tight, quick hand, the kind of script you scrawl when someone might catch you. Her entries span 3 months. The last 3. And the entries are unhinged. You skim through trembling descriptions, strange music humming through the walls. Falls. The queen's eyes turning black in firelight, a whisper that isn't in the room. One line is repeated 5 times on a single page. The necklace chooses. In one passage, she recounts being summoned by the queen at midnight. Asked to polish the necklace only to find it warm. Not warm like skin, warm like breath. Another entry claims the stone cracked for a moment. A thin line like a vein. Inside it, not light, not gem, but something moving. Historians still argue whether Elizabeth Bray ever existed. No official record of her service remains in the court rolls, but in a 17th century estate inventory in Wales, a letter is found tucked in a locked drawer signed E. Bray, referencing the Queen's mirror that blinks when she does not. You close the journal, heart pounding, and realize this was hidden for a reason. You replace the floorboard, step back into the corridor, and freeze. The Queen is standing there. No escort, no warning, just her and the necklace. Her eyes flick to the door behind you. Her voice is calm when she speaks. Some histories write themselves. Others must be, edited. You murmur an apology. You bow. You don't breathe. She watches for a long time, then turns and walks away, her heels clicking like clock hands ticking down. You don't sleep that night. You pace instead. Count floorboards. Watch shadows shift. And then one by one, the Queen's inner circle begins to shrink further. Lord Eversley is found slumped over his desk with eyes wide open. The official story stroke. But the chapel boy swears his lips were moving even after death. Lady Penrose is dismissed after claiming the Queen's reflection smiled when she didn't. Two more disappear entirely. You're almost numb to it now. And yet, something's changed. The Queen starts wearing gloves, long ones. Even at dinner, even at prayer. She avoids mirrors now, except one, the tall one in her private study. The one no one's allowed to clean. Jacques still hovers near her, but not as closely, not as confidently. You notice his hands tremble when he opens vials now. Once he drops a bottle, and the sound it makes on the floor is not glass, it's like bone cracking. Here's a fringe fact that nobody ever mentions in court. Annals, the Queen's personal harp was retuned during this time, not to standard pitch, but to something lower, deeper. The kind of tones that make your ribs vibrate even when you're standing still. And suddenly she stops speaking Latin in prayer. She starts using another language, one that no one recognizes. Not French, not Greek, something softer, slower. It sounds like wind through cracked stone. The Bishop of Exeter resigns. He doesn't give a reason. One morning the Queen is missing entirely. Panic ripples through the court. Guards search the grounds, but it's you, of course, who finds her. Sitting beneath a great elm near the West Garden, barefoot in the frost, the necklace draped across her fingers like a leash. She's humming again. When she sees you, she beckons. You kneel instinctively. Her hand touches your chin. We are not born knowing what we are, she says softly. Sometimes it takes adornment. She smiles, not cruelly, but like someone who's seen the shape of her own shadow. You stand only when dismissed. You don't speak of it again. That night a storm rolls in. Thunder cracks directly above the palace. Candles flicker for hours. And in the center of it all, Elizabeth remains, unshaken, unchanged. Or rather, changed completely. You wake the next morning to find Jacques gone. No carriage, no note, no farewell. His room is empty, his mirror is shattered. And the Queen is still wearing the necklace. But now the ruby pulses, like a heart. You trudge quietly through the halls, still wondering what it means that Jacques vanished without so much as a whisper. No protest, no blood, not even a stray glove left behind. It's as if he'd been edited out of the story. And strangely, no one asks where he went. No maid speaks his name. No lord inquires. It's like a collective forgetting swept over the court. But you remember, you always do. That slight stammer in his last few days, the way he started looking over his shoulder, like something had turned its attention from him to her. Now it's just the Queen and the necklace, alone, inseparable. It's been 3 weeks since she was last seen without it. And those around her are starting to shift. Not in appearance, no, but in the way they carry themselves, stiffer, more cautious. Like people sitting too close to a fire they're pretending not to feel. One guard, Roger Swithin, tells you in hushed tones that he heard whispers in the Queen's chambers when no one else was inside. He thought it was a draft at first, but when he leaned closer to the door, he said he could understand the words. Who is next to wear me? He quits the next morning, leaving behind only a single boot. The other one is found later burned and warped beyond recognition. Here's a little-known historical fact. The Queen's privy chamber was customarily swept each morning and night. But during this period, 3 separate staff members refused to enter, and by month's end, the task was reassigned to a mute servant named Edwin. He cleaned by candlelight and left no written record, only a drawing, a crude charcoal sketch left under a floor tile. It's of the Queen standing before a mirror with something else behind her. Not a person, not quite. More like a tangle of limbs in shadow. A crown with too many points. A necklace that grows roots instead of chains. And the mirror. It's cracked, though the real one in truth never was. You keep returning to that image in your mind, the way Edwin drew the Queen's eyes blank like someone dreaming underwater. Then one morning she gives a speech. It's nothing grand, just a short address to the court about trade and the importance of national pride, but her voice has changed. It's smoother, lower, measured like a pendulum swing. She says things like, England does not bleed. She sheds skin. And loyalty is not the heart's burden, it is its offering. You don't know what they mean. No one does. But everyone claps. Everyone always claps. Here's a fringe tidbit for your pillow. One of the Queen's rings. A lesser-known signet believed to have belonged to her mother. Anne Boleyn is quietly removed from her finger. No explanation. When a chamberlain dares to ask, she replies, "Old blood speaks too loudly." You see the change more clearly now. When she walks, her feet barely make a sound. When she turns corners, it's like she's already halfway into the next room. The necklace doesn't bounce against her chest anymore, it rests. As though held in place by will alone, people have begun to avoid eye contact. Even high-ranking officials lower their gaze. Once during a quiet moment, you glimpse her gazing at a portrait of herself from 5 years earlier. Younger, laughing, wearing no necklace. She raises a hand and touches the canvas gently. Then she turns to the mirror across the room and repeats the motion. Only this time the reflection doesn't match. It moves later, slower, like it's waiting for something. Historians still argue whether Elizabeth's increasingly erratic behavior in her later years was due to untreated illness, overwork, or the loss of close advisors. But there's another theory, one whispered in rare corners of fringe academia, that she came into contact with a cognitive object. A relic designed not to kill, but to reshape thought. They believe the necklace might have been such an object. You believe it too. The Queen no longer eats at banquets. She no longer accepts flowers. She no longer touches anyone. Except the necklace. Always the necklace. And now, the air in the castle feels different. Denser. Like fog has moved indoors. Candles won't stay lit as long. Mice vanish. Paintings fade faster. Time bends. You notice a hallway that used to lead to the kitchens now ends at a window. One you swear wasn't there before. And the Queen, she never seems surprised. She simply adjusts. You hear her say to a falconer once, "The body is a nest." And sometimes something else hatches inside it. You don't ask what she means. You just count your steps. Try to remember the last time anything felt normal. The last time you saw her laugh, or cry, or flinch, or blink. Because now, she wears that necklace even in her sleep. It's late. The castle's quiet in that unnatural way that always means someone's watching. You've learned to move silently, to listen for breath that isn't yours. And tonight, something draws you back to the apothecary's old chamber. Jacques' former sanctuary. The place no one's dared enter since he vanished. But the door isn't locked. It creaks open with a soft sigh like the room missed you. Inside, dust dances in shafts of moonlight. Every bottle is still perfectly aligned, alphabetical, color-coded, labeled in a hand too precise to be human. But something new sits at the center of the table. A vial, tiny, unmarked, sealed in wax. You don't touch it, not yet. Instead, you scan the shelves. Powders in every hue. Roots and fragments suspended in clear glass. A few dried herbs you vaguely recognize from fever treatments. And then there it is. A box tucked beneath a stack of velvet-bound ledgers, smaller than the others, wrapped in black silk. You open it. Inside lies a single silver chain and a pendant shaped like a serpent's fang. It glows faintly red, just like the queen's ruby. But this isn't jewelry. It's raw, unpolished. It hums with energy that makes your teeth hurt. The label inside reads only Prototype 3 Obedience. Your heart kicks. You dig further through Jacques' notes, hastily scribbled on onion paper and stitched together with dried glue. One page stops you cold. At the top in bold black ink, applications influence decay suggestion, devotion. Below it, a formula fragments of bloodroot mercury thread something written in a language you can't read, and underlined 3 times, not to be used in prolonged contact. And yet the queen's worn it for months. You step back. Your hand grazes the shelf and one of the vials tips slightly, just enough to clink. Behind you, the door creaks again. You whirl around, pulse thudding, but the corridor is empty. No footsteps, no guards, just the hallway breathing. You don't stay. You take the box, the fang, the notes. You hide them beneath the floorboards of the servants' stairwell, right beside that cracked tile no one ever fixes. And you wait, because something's coming. You can feel it. The queen's silence has deepened. Her expressions now flicker between regal calm and something else. She doesn't respond to greetings. She doesn't read aloud. She no longer signs her name. Instead, she presses her finger, always the same one, to a wax seal, imprinting a strange glyph where her crest used to go. And no one questions it. One court artist commissioned to sketch a new portrait comes away trembling. His final piece, just her hand. With the necklace and too many fingers, the queen still walks the halls, but rarely during the day. More and more she drifts through them at dusk. Her silhouette backlit by candlelight haloed in that humming red. Here's a mainstream historical detail. Elizabeth's later portraits depict her with increasingly exaggerated symbols, snakes, moons, the phoenix. Scholars believe these were metaphors for power and rebirth. But what if they were instruction symbols chosen not to represent her reign, but to preserve what she was becoming? And now we come to a strange visitor. You never learn his name. He arrives in the rain, cloaked, hooded, mounted on a horse with black tack and no saddle. He speaks only once to the guard at the gate. I've come to confirm the heartbeat. That night, lightning splits a tree in the courtyard. A flock of ravens appears by morning. And the queen. The queen holds an audience the next evening. But no one's allowed to speak. They sit, they listen, they nod. Some weep. You hear one noble whisper afterward. She showed me my childhood. Another stammers, I felt it blink. But no one can say what was actually said. Even the record keeper writes only. The room was not empty, but no words were written. Fringe tidbit. For the brave one, surviving page from a dismissed advisor's diary mentions a theory drawn from a banned manuscript in Prague that certain objects can serve as bridges, not to demons, not even spirits, but to conscious will, an idea so strong it becomes its own entity. It seeks minds, burrows in, rests quietly until needed. The queen's necklace. It might be one of those. And what's more chilling, she may know it. Might even welcome it. You pass her once near the chapel, close enough to hear her murmur something. You lean in, hold your breath. She whispers, it's not possession, it's partnership. You pretend not to hear. You keep walking. But in your pocket the silver fang burns cold. You shouldn't go back, but you do. The floorboard groans as you lift it again, retrieving the box with the silver fang. You don't open it this time, not all the way. Just enough to confirm it's still glowing, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat held between breaths. There's something different about the air now. Not heavier exactly, just more aware. The castle watches you. Servants pass more quickly in the halls. Candles burn lower than they should. Doors that used to creak now stay silent, like they're trying not to draw attention. Even your own reflection looks thinner, less attached. You start to wonder what the necklace actually wants. Because it's not just influencing the queen anymore, it's reaching out. You see it in the council chamber. One noble interrupts the queen mid-sentence, a minor thing, asking about grain taxes. But Elizabeth doesn't blink. She places a single finger on the ruby. Her nail clicks once. The man's voice fails, literally. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. Not for 10 whole minutes. Everyone sits frozen. He's dismissed, of course. Sent away to recover his humors. But you see his eyes as he leaves confused, terrified, and devoted. Like he would walk back in and kiss her feet if she asked. It clicks then. The necklace isn't killing, it's converting. Historians still argue whether Elizabeth's charisma in her final years was natural or manufactured. Some say she cultivated awe to prevent rebellion. Others think her silence and stillness were symptoms of decline. But what if they were neither? What if they were strategies not hers but the necklace's? And what if you're next? Because the silver fang still calls to you. You've started dreaming of it. Not nightmares, no. Dreams of calm. Of slipping into water soft and red and endless. Of voices humming gently behind your ear telling you to rest, to obey, to understand. Sometimes you wake up with the box in your hands, even though you swear you hid it. You don't remember walking across the room. One night you place the fang on the stone floor. Just to see what it does. It spins. Not quickly, just a lazy rotation perfectly smooth. And when it stops, it points toward the Queen's chambers. You repeat this test 3 more times over the next week. Same result. Always her. And then, something new. You overhear 2 guards whispering. Something about the Queen's breath frosting glass even in summer. About her shadow, no longer matching her shape. About her pulse, a court physician says he can hear 2 heartbeats. Not 1, 2. You remember Jacques' note not to be used in prolonged contact. Too late for that. One morning you wake to find the castle wrapped in a strange mist. Not fog mist. It clings only to the upper levels. The Queen doesn't appear for 3 days. When she finally enters the Great Hall again, no one dares speak first. And when she finally does, it's in that same strange language again. Soft, slow, not meant for ears. A few faint. One steward vomits. Another laughs uncontrollably for half an hour. The Queen never raises her voice. She simply lifts her necklace slightly and lets the ruby catch the light. And you realize, it doesn't need to shout. Here's a strange historical note tucked away in a footnote of a late 16th century travel journal. A Spanish envoy claimed that Queen Elizabeth glowed from within like a red lantern during Mass, and no flies would approach her. Most scholars dismiss it as metaphor. But you've seen it now. The humming, the light, the way no insects crawl near her chambers, not even spiders. Even the ravens avoid the eastern tower now. And here's the detail that seals your suspicion. You finally speak to one of the Queen's last remaining handmaids, Ellen, barely 16. Her eyes are glassy, her tone soft like she's constantly waking from a dream. You ask her what the Queen does at night. She smiles. She learns. What does she learn, you ask? Ellen tilts her head. The shape of silence. The names of things before they were named. The sound of the first fire. You press further. And the necklace, what is it? Ellen leans in. Her voice drops to a whisper. It's not a what. She never finishes. The next morning she's gone. No farewell, no note. Her bed still warm, her shoes still beside it. Just a single red pearl on her pillow. You don't sleep that night. You sit with the silver fang in your lap and ask aloud, "What are you?" It doesn't answer. But you swear the ruby down the hall glows a little brighter, like it heard. The necklace leaves a mark. You learn this from a letter. It's unsigned, folded into your bedding while you slept. Written in a sharp, frantic hand. Touch it only once, and you will know. Touch it twice, and it will know you. Touch it thrice, and it will not let go. You reread it 3 times before burning it. But the thought lingers. Has Elizabeth touched it too many times? Or was she always meant to? Was all of this the point? The Queen appears more frequently now, but she never speaks directly. Not unless necessary. Her eyes sweep the room like candle flames, resting briefly on each person as if cataloging them. And every time she does something inside you feels briefly seen, but not understood. Weird things begin to happen. A scribe forgets how to write the letter E. Just stops using it. Entire reports returned with words rewritten awkwardly to avoid that one vowel. Another servant loses the concept of time. He asks what month it is 5 times in one day. And the queen? She starts finishing people's sentences, not just occasionally, but every time. She speaks them moments before they're said, sometimes whole phrases. It's not charm, it's control. You see it most clearly during an evening audience with a Spanish diplomat. He tries to offer her a gift, an ornate crucifix carved from salt crystal. But before he can finish unwrapping it, the queen gently raises one hand and says, "No need, you've already regretted bringing it." His hands shake. He bows so deeply he doesn't rise for a full minute. He leaves that night gift untouched, eyes hollow. Here's your historical peg. It is well documented that Elizabeth developed an uncanny ability to anticipate diplomatic moves. She'd outthink, outmaneuver, and outpersuade seasoned envoys. But during this chapter of her reign, there are reports, quiet ones, that some guests left court unable to remember their own names for hours. Scholars say stress, exhaustion, maybe poison. But now, you wonder if it was proximity. Because the necklace doesn't just pulse anymore. It sings, low, sub-audible, a rumble more felt in bone than heard in air. You think maybe it's only you who notices until you overhear two laundry maids muttering, afraid to go near the queen's gowns. The fabric trembles, one says, even when there's no breeze. And there's another whisper in the walls now. Not like Jacques' earlier murmurs, warm and velvety. This one is older, scraped raw. Once in the chapel stairwell, you swear you hear the necklace say, "Return." You drop the silver fang when it happens. It rolls 3 times, then stops, pointing again toward her chambers. Always her. But here's where things shift again. Because the queen's not just passive anymore, she begins issuing orders. Not about politics, not about war, but about mirrors. All but one are to be removed from court. The sole remaining piece is her tall mercury-backed mirror in the solar chamber, the one no one cleans. A young maid tries to polish it once, by accident, by reflex. She never returns. Only her cloth is found half melted and crusted with something red that isn't blood and smells faintly of cinnamon. That's when it occurs to you. Mirrors reflect the wearer. But what if the wearer changes? What does the mirror show then? Historians still argue whether the queen's fixation on mirrors was vanity or fear. Some say she couldn't bear to see herself age. Others say she feared her reflection would betray her. But what if it already had? What if the reflection had become something else? You get close, once so close to the solar chamber that you almost peer in. You stop yourself at the last second, not out of fear, out of instinct, because you're not sure what you'd see. Not anymore. You begin to feel the necklace's reach more often. At meals, your spoon feels too heavy. Time passes in strange skips, 5 minutes here, an hour there. You write words you don't remember knowing. One day you dream you're standing at the queen's side, holding the fang, whispering her thoughts before she thinks them. You wake up sobbing. That day you find a new mark on your palm, faint, like a bruise in the shape of a circle, with teeth. And yet you keep going. Why? You ask yourself this as the queen begins her new rituals. Every sundown she sits before the mirror, alone. No food, no attendants, just her, the ruby, and that humming mirror. And every dawn she emerges quieter, more centered, as if whatever war she's waging, she's beginning to win. Or worse, lose gladly. You catch a phrase in passing muttered under her breath as she passes you. Soon it will wear me. You don't ask what it is, but you look down at your own hands, at the silver fang in your pocket, and you wonder what happens when it wants more than one. The queen receives a gift. It arrives on a storm-wet morning, carried not by a messenger but by a raven. Yes, a raven. Its feathers are glossier than oil and its eyes too human to ignore. It waits patiently outside the great hall, pecking once on the stone sill, until a guard trembling opens the window. In its beak, a scroll, tied with gold thread, sealed with a red wax insignia. Not the Tudor rose, something else. A spiral inside a sun. No one recognizes it. The queen does. She opens it in silence and reads without blinking. Then she smiles for the first time in weeks. Not the distant mirror smile you've come to dread. A real one. like someone remembering a favorite secret. Then she places the scroll on the fire, watches it burn, never speaks of it again. But you feel it, the ripple. Something in the palace shifts. Corridors you've walked for years now curve slightly differently. Rooms feel colder at their centers. The bell in the East Tower rings 6 times one afternoon unprompted. When asked why, the bell ringer swears he saw a man in the tower window, except no one was up there. And you begin to dream again. Not the gentle drifting dreams you remember from childhood. These are sharp, specific. In one, you're holding the queen's necklace in your hands, and it's whispering names to you, hundreds of them. Names that don't exist. Names that sound like bells tolling underwater. In another, you're at a banquet. But no one eats. They just sit staring straight ahead. Their plates are full of ash, and the queen wears a second necklace. This one wrapped around her head like a crown. You wake up tasting metal. Here's a mainstream fact to pin down. The spiraling, historical records show a sharp decline in foreign diplomacy with Elizabeth's court during her later reign. Officially, it was due to political tension. Unofficially, many envoys reported returning with fragmented memories, blurred timelines, and deep personal unrest. You're not surprised, because now even her own advisors are slipping. Lord Kinsley, once her most vocal critic, now follows her silently. He doesn't speak in council meetings, just nods, smiles. His eyes look like wet glass. When asked about his change in demeanor, he replies only, "It's not surrender, it's relief." One night, you spot something strange in the queen's chambers. She's seated back to the mirror, the necklace faintly pulsing. Around her, 5 objects laid out on the floor in a circle: a mirror shard, a strip of red velvet, a child's carved toy horse, a raven's feather, a silver spoon bent into a spiral. You watch as she hums a different tune, now slow and low like an engine turning over in the Earth's core. Then one by one the objects vanish. Not lifted, not taken, just erased. You rub your eyes, but they're gone. And she is smiling again. The next morning, the queen calls a private audience with the Spanish ambassador. No one is permitted to record it. When he leaves, he collapses against the doorframe, whispering, "She knew my dream. She answered it." He departs England that night. You sneak into the queen's antechamber afterward, hoping to find a note, a discarded letter, anything. Instead, you find a second necklace, not like the one she wears. This one is thinner, simpler, but still warm. And it hums when you get close. You don't touch it. You can't. Because in that moment, a memory slams into you, a voice from one of your dreams saying, "This one's for the next." You don't know what that means, but it chills you. You tuck the necklace into a pouch and bury it beneath the chapel's foundation stones that same night. But you don't sleep, because you still feel it calling. And then, something unthinkable. The queen collapses, not publicly, not during court, but privately, alone in her chambers beside the mirror. A guard finds her on the floor, eyes open, lips parted, but she's breathing. Slowly, faintly, a physician is summoned. He places a hand to her chest, freezes, then whispers, "It's beating out of time." Not a metaphor, not poetic. Literally out of time. Too slow, too fast, then a pause, then 2 pulses, then none. And just when they begin to panic, she opens her eyes and says, "I was elsewhere." No one speaks. No one dares ask where. Later that night, she pens a letter in complete darkness, guiding her quill without candlelight. The contents are unknown. She seals it in black wax and sends it off by raven. No address, no name. Just a spiral sun on the envelope. And now every clock in the palace is 5 minutes off. But no one dares correct them. Because time, it seems, now belongs to her. The queen starts wearing gloves. Thick ones. Satin-lined, stitched with tiny red threads that seem to shimmer under candlelight. You notice she never removes them, not for eating, not for prayer, not even to sign documents. Not that she writes anymore, she presses a single gloved fingertip into wax. Always the same strange sigil, the spiral within a sun. It appears now not just on letters but on edicts, invitations, even food ration orders. Every mark glows faintly for a second after she seals it. No one questions it. Not even the archbishop who frowns as he delivers a sermon, but never says aloud why his hands tremble while flipping the pages. You hear whispers of quiet unrest. Now voices trying to organize resistance or at least answers, but they never last long. One group of scribes meets in the East Wing. They're found days later wandering the halls reciting fragments of nursery rhymes and licking ink off their fingers. Another disappears entirely. Their quarters now contain only 5 cloaks, folded neatly, each with a red pearl tucked into the collar. Here's your mainstream anchor. During Elizabeth's final years, several administrative staff were replaced without notice. No deaths, no dismissals, just quiet vanishing. Historians attribute it to disease plague or simple turnover, but no one ever saw them leave. You begin to suspect there is no leaving anymore. Not really. And then, a visitor. Not foreign, not titled, just a woman. Tall, cloaked, with skin the color of dark wax and eyes like smoke in candlelight. She arrives with no escort, no luggage. She's let in anyway. The queen greets her alone. No record is made of their conversation, but afterward the queen starts speaking in that low ancient language more often. She hums while walking. The hum begins to infect the rest of the palace. Maids echo it softly. Guards tap it out unconsciously on their hilts. You find yourself whistling it before you even realize it. It's not catchy. It's installed. And the gloves. They're changing. You notice a faint bulge along her wrist one morning, as if something beneath the fabric moves. She gestures now with that hand more often. Little flicks sharp and precise, like conducting something you cannot hear. That same day a falcon lands on the queen's windowsill. Not unusual, except it speaks. One word. Come, and she does. She follows it into the garden. No one stops her. And from then on, every night at the same hour, the queen walks barefoot in the same path across the courtyard. 7 turns around the fountain. 3 bows to the northern wall. A single breath against the chapel door. Then back inside, as if rehearsing for something. You try to stop tracking her movements, but it becomes a compulsion. You draw diagrams, sketch patterns. They mean nothing at first until one day they align with the strange markings on Jacques' old notes. You overlay them. Perfect match. The queen is walking a spell, slowly, over weeks, over time. One servant catches you with the diagrams. She doesn't speak. She just smiles and places a red pearl in your hand. Then she walks away humming. You crush the pearl beneath your boot. It lets out a gasp, not a pop. The queen that afternoon turns to you in the corridor and simply says, "You felt it." You nod. Because denial is pointless now. You've started hearing your name in rooms where no one stands. Seeing your reflection move a half beat behind, the fang under the chapel stones pulses louder every night. Sometimes you dream you wear it. Sometimes you wake up and your skin smells like roses and ash. Fringe. Tidbit for 2 nights spiral. In a sealed letter, discovered in 1892, a courtier named Lady Brackenbury describes a thin red thread stretching from the queen's necklace to the ceiling beams of the solar chamber, visible only at dawn and only in Moonlight's absence. She claims it was feeding. You believe her, because now the queen's cheeks flush again. Her eyes gleam brighter. Her posture returns to its younger grace, but it's not youth. It's something else wearing the shape of power. One counselor blurts out during a meeting, "She is becoming." Everyone falls silent. The queen doesn't react. She just reaches into her cloak and places something on the table. It's a lock of hair. Black, braided, still warm. She says nothing. The counselor never returns. That night you find a line carved into your door. A spiral. Inside it, your own name. You sleep with the diagrams pinned to your chest, the silver fang beneath your pillow. You do not dream. Or rather, you do. But the dream no longer ends when you wake. You can't tell what day it is anymore. The sun still rises. Meals are still served, bells still toll. But something behind it all has shifted, like the whole palace is running on a different rhythm. A slower drumbeat, a heavier breath. Time feels suspended, held by invisible threads like a marionette waiting for its next movement. And the queen is at the center of it all. She stands taller now, not just regally, but impossibly. Sometimes when she passes, you swear her shadow lags behind just slightly. Other times, it gets there first. Simbus. She no longer blinks. She no longer eats. The gown she wears is threaded with copper and it crackles softly with static when she moves. But no one questions it. Not openly. Not anymore. A lord dares to whisper during court, asking if she's unwell. The queen turns her head slowly and smiles. The lord bursts into tears, falls to his knees, begs forgiveness for a crime no one accuses him of. He's never seen again. His room is sealed the next morning. When you sneak in later, it's empty, except for a single red glove, still warm. You remember the fang beneath the chapel? You haven't touched it in days, but it hums louder now, even from underground. You can feel it in your teeth like someone's tuning a violin behind your spine. You consider digging it up, wearing it, understanding it, but not yet. Because something else has emerged. The queen has begun speaking in her sleep. You're close enough one night to hear it through the walls. A low murmur rising and falling like waves. Names, equations, memories not her own. One line repeats over and over. I was the vessel. I am the seed. I will be the root. And the mirror. Oh, the mirror. Now veiled in black silk, always drawn shut, except during her midnight hours. You ask a maid why, and she just says, it no longer reflects, it remembers. Here's your mainstream fact to ground this madness. Elizabeth was said to have refused to allow mirrors in her chambers during her later reign. Some say it was to avoid seeing her aging face. Others say it was grief, but a lesser-known note from a visiting Dutch doctor reads, the queen avoids her reflection not out of vanity, but out of fear she is no longer alone in it. And that mirror, it pulses now. You walk by it one evening and the silk veil flutters without wind. You see something inside. Not a face. Not exactly. More like a shape wearing a crown of limbs, like roots forming a mask. Like something crawling up from beneath the floor of time, trying on humanity like a costume. You run, but not fast enough. That night the queen calls you, alone. She sits in the solar chamber candleless and gestures for you to enter. You obey. You always obey. Her voice is softer now, frayed at the edges. Like the last pages of a book being turned too often. You've watched, she says. You've listened. You've resisted. That's good. You nod. She leans forward and her necklace glows not red now, but gold. Briefly, brightly, then dims again. I did not choose this, she whispers, but it needed choosing. You ask finally what it is. She smiles, sadly. Not a god, not a demon, just memory. Memory that wants to live again. Memory that needs mouths and names and blood. You swallow hard. Ask what happens if it spreads. She tilts her head. It already has. And then she touches your hand. Just once. Through the glove. And you see it. Flashes. The fang worn by ancient priests beneath obsidian altars. The ruby set into a chalice that once bled even when dry. A necklace buried in the stomach of a monarch who ruled a country made entirely of ash. And all of them saying the same thing. I see you. You jerk your hand back. She doesn't flinch, just nods. When it's time, you'll carry the next. You stumble from the room. But when you look down, something is clenched in your hand. A second red pearl. Still warm. You bury it. Deep in the gardens. But you wake the next day to find another on your pillow. Then another. And another. They're multiplying now. Or following you. And you don't know which is worse. You don't leave your room for 2 days. Not from fear exactly, though that's part of it. It's more like hesitation. Like the air outside your door has changed texture, like even time is sticky now. Slower, less certain of itself. The pearls keep appearing. On your windowsill, in your boots, floating in your wash basin, like eyes that don't blink. You burn them, bury them, throw them into the well. They return. Each night the queen grows quieter, not silent quieter. Her footsteps no longer make sound. Her breath doesn't mist in the air. You pass her once in the corridor and don't even register her presence until you're already beyond her. Then you feel it like a pressure behind your ribs, like gravity turned sideways. She says nothing, just watches. And that's somehow worse. You speak to no one, but you observe everything. The red thread appears next, thin like spider silk stretching from chamber to chamber. At first only at night, then in daylight too. A fine lattice of connection invisible unless the sun strikes it just right. You follow one strand down to the servant's wing and find it leads to an empty room where the walls are covered in symbols drawn in what looks like rust. Circles, spirals, the necklace, the fang, the queen's eyes. Mainstream historical note. In the final years of Elizabeth's life, rumors swirled about the queen holding private evening rituals, never documented formally. But a 17th century French noblewoman wrote that England's crown does not sleep. It mutters behind closed doors. No one took her seriously. Her journal, after all, also claimed the Thames turned red under moonlight. You believe her now, because one morning the Thames does run red. Not blood, not dye, but water stained the color of a deep ruby shimmering unnaturally in the dawn. No explanation is offered. Boats are paused for 2 days, and the queen does not appear until the third night. She descends the chapel steps barefoot, hair, unbound robe dragging behind like a ripple in reality. The necklace hangs loose now, lower on her chest, swaying with every breath, but it moves like it wants to move. Like it's pulling. She walks into the nave and begins to sing. Not in Latin, not in English, not in any language you know. It sounds like water dreaming. It sounds like pages being torn gently from a book. And as she sings, the red thread glows everywhere, all at once. From hall to hall, from ceiling to floor, from mirror to door. You feel it under your skin, in your chest. Your fingertips tremble with rhythm. You grip the chapel pew until the wood splinters. Then she stops, and the light fades, and she turns to you, just you. The past is almost done remembering itself. She walks away, and behind her the pews where nobles once sat begin to melt. You don't sleep that night, but in the morning you find that time has looped. Everyone is wearing what they wore yesterday, saying the same things, making the same gestures. You try to warn them. They laugh, then blink, then forget. One maid repeats the same phrase 3 times in a row. The queen is well today. The queen is well today. The queen is well today. You shake her, scream. She looks at you, eyes dull, and replies, "Is today?" That evening you finally return to the chapel floor. You pry up the stones, your hands bloody, your breath ragged. You find the silver fang where you left it, still humming, still warm, still waiting. You lift it, and the queen appears behind you. You don't know how. She speaks without opening her mouth. If you wear it, you will forget who you were. But you'll remember what comes next. You ask what that means. She offers only this. The necklace does not choose the moment. It is the moment. Then she turns, leaves. And for the first time you notice something. She's not casting a shadow anymore. And neither are you. You no longer dream. Not because sleep won't come, it does in waves, but because what happens in your dreams is no different from what happens when you're awake. The castle no longer holds the illusion of order. It's quiet, yes, but not in a restful way. It's the silence of a stage waiting for a final act. Servants walk with rehearsed grace, now repeating their gestures like lines in a well-worn play. You see a maid curtsy in an empty hallway, a guard tip his hat to a chair, a court musician playing to a room without ears, and above it all the queen. She doesn't speak, doesn't blink, doesn't even breathe in a way you can see. She simply is. She glides down corridors like ink on water. Her gown moves before she does. Her necklace, now brighter than ever, pulses in steady time with a rhythm that no longer matches a human heart. It matches something older. You ask no more questions. You've stopped trying to track time. The clocks have all stopped. The sun rises too early, sets too late. The moon appears mid-afternoon and refuses to leave. Reality bends around her now, and then the moment arrives. The velvet box returns. Not left on your pillow this time. It's waiting on the queen's throne. You enter the chamber alone. No guards, no fanfare, just the box. The air hums. The mirror behind the throne is uncovered for the first time in weeks. You don't look at it. You can't. You approach the box. The queen's voice, though she is nowhere visible, whispers, "It's your turn." You open it. Inside is not the necklace, not the fang, not even a pearl. It's a chain. Thin, silver, coiled like a question. You lift it. And as it unspools, the humming in the walls stops. Everything stops. The castle holds its breath. You see a faint shimmer around your fingers, like the air is folding, preparing to make room for something. "It remembers you," the voice says. Now you remember it. And just like that, the chain wraps itself around your wrist. No pain, no heat, just cold. Familiar, final. The queen steps from the mirror, not through it, but from within it. She's smiling. She no longer wears the necklace. It hovers behind her now, suspended in the air, spinning slowly. You realize something terrible. The necklace was never meant to be worn forever. It was meant to be passed. The queen reaches out not to give you anything, but to receive. Your memory, your voice, yourself. You want to run, but your legs don't move. You want to speak, but the words are gone. Instead, you feel the hum rise again, and this time you understand it. It's not a language. It's not music. It is instruction. The queen touches your forehead with one gloved finger and whispers, "Welcome back." You remember flames. Sand, blood turned to light. You remember building the first mirror. You remember the first lie you taught a king to say. You remember what the necklace is, and you know what comes next. Because now it's not her story anymore. It's yours. You blink once, and the queen disappears, gone, as if she was never there. Only the humming remains. You turn slowly. The throne is empty, but the mirror is full. You walk toward it, and you don't stop. Not until your reflection blinks before you do. Not until the necklace appears around your throat. Not until you say the words out loud for the first time. It begins again. And now everything slows. The castle dims behind your eyes. The halls that once pulsed with sound and movement are now only outlines in the dark, soft shapes your mind no longer needs to track. You let go of the pearls, let go of the fang. The humming grows quieter with each breath. Not gone, never gone, but settling. Like dust in morning light. Like waves softening against a distant shore. You are no longer walking. You are floating. The red fades from view. The queen's face blurs, then disappears. There is no crown, no throne, no mirror, only stillness. Only the gentle exhale of something that's finally been heard. And you, lying back in this quiet feeling, every thread of the strange tapestry you just wandered begin to unravel and fold itself away as if you were never meant to carry its weight for long. You're lighter now. You're further away. Even your thoughts soften at the edges, less noise, more warmth. And that chain around your wrist, it's gone. Or maybe it was never really there. The important thing is that your body is still. Your breath is calm. And somewhere far from any palace or pearl or crown, a fan hums softly in the corner of your room. Outside your window, the sky fades toward midnight blue. You are safe. You are quiet. You are gone.